Welcome to another very exciting episode of Pop Culture, the podcast. Once more, welcome to a very exciting episode of Pop Culture, the podcast where we talk about everything geeky, from movies, TV, film, video games, everything you can think of. In today's episode, we're actually talking about D&D with a very special guest. So this week, on this episode of Get Cultured, Pop Cultured, we actually have Ron Ogden with us. Ron is an actor and co-producer and co-DM of the Dungeon Run podcast, very popular and awesome D&D podcast, so check it out if you don't already. Before we start, though, I have a couple disclaimers to make. One, apologies to all our listeners for the past couple episodes. I didn't realize that my mic was doing awful things, so I've tried to clean up the audio as best I can, but that's the end result, so apologies again. Hopefully this one's going to be slightly better, but we're working on a proper fix coming soon. And secondly, I have to make a disclaimer that I am employed by Wizards of the Coast, aka the company that creates and produces and sends D&D out into the world. However, this podcast is not sponsored by Wizards of the Coast. All of the opinions therein are held by the three of us here independently of the company. I'm just doing this for fun. I'm just a dude who loves D&D, and we got another dude on the show who absolutely loves D&D. So yeah, welcome, Ron.
Thank you. That was quite an introduction. I did not know you worked for Wizards of the Coast.
Yes, yeah, it's a fun little fact that people tend to be very shocked by, especially here in Europe. So I'm American, but I actually live in the UK.
Right.
And every time I mention it, people are like, "Wait, what? There's Wizards of the Coast over here too? I thought
Of
everything
course.
was in
Yeah,
America."
it's an international company. Yep. Pretty big.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's part of Hasbro, which is the biggest game company. So yeah, probably elsewhere outside of our United States bubble for sure. Also, didn't know you were in the UK. Incredible. Can I ask, what do you do for Wizards?
Sure. So I am the channel lead for the direct retail sales channel, which means
Cool.
we sell directly to big retailers who fit a very specific criteria all throughout Europe. And I am the person who manages all those accounts. I do all the forecasting. I do a lot of the print run numbers for D&D. So
Yeah.
a shout out to one of our retailers, Magic Madhouse in the UK. If you've ever bought D&D from Magic Madhouse, it's because I printed enough for them to buy from me. So there you go.
Look at that. That's awesome. Well, you are clearly very sharp because those jobs are not logistics. Being a producer, logistics is probably one of the harder jobs that people don't understand what goes into it. So kudos to you, good sir. Well, here you were introducing me, and now I'm the one impressed. That's really what it is. Well, thank you for having me, guys. It's a pleasure. There's one thing I did want to point out is we're actually no longer a co-DM on the Dungeon Run.
Ooh.
Yeah, we had some changing of things. Jared got into fatherhood and had to take a step back. I'm actually in fatherhood myself, but for different reasons. I'm not have to take a step back. So we're still continuing the show. But if you guys aren't interested, you do mostly Wizards of the Coast stuff, and we mostly D&D. We've actually been doing Call of Cthulhu the last couple of weeks. We started a new Call of Cthulhu campaign called Forbidden. Which is actually being led storytelling by Morgan Peter Brown, and includes Serena Marie, Rachel Seeley, myself, and Lexi McQueen. So you guys, I'm super proud of this group, and we'll get into a little bit more on why we decided to do a little bit of a pause from Stormborn, season 2 Stormborn, to get into Forbidden. But yeah, just starting straight off there, just letting you guys know how things have been going. So, yeah,
that sounds awesome. And I've always been interested in other role-playing game systems and Call of Cthulhu, because I love the Lovecraftian world, the mythos, shall we say. So very interested to see that. I'll have to check that out. That sounds awesome.
Yeah. Speaking of you say I have extensive experience with D&D. I'm a big nerd for it, and have been since I was 16, which means little under 30 years of D&D for me. Age me there a bit, but I started with AD&D, and I've told this story before in other podcasts. But I started with, just so I want to lay the groundwork for my nerddom here, right? So people understand who. If you don't know me, or if you haven't heard about me, let me pitch to you on why. Maybe listen to me a little bit if you have some time, and if you like the sound quality of my voice, maybe I got something to say. So 30 years of D&D. not unusual. There's lots of me types out there with that amount of experience now that it's been around since the 70s. My unique experience is that I grew up in the Deep South. So I'm playing D&D when it's also counterculture, which means we had to hide that we were playing it. Because if you're not familiar with the satanic panic of the South, of the southern states, look it up. It's kind of intense. So we had to play, the typical play in mom's basements. A lot of people don't understand that became such a thing because we were hiding from people when we were playing. Because, people honestly believe that you were satanic or, Magic the Gathering is a game that I played in high school at lunch. And there were multiple times where I had to petition to the principal because they kept trying to tell us that we were practicing witchcraft and trying to cast spells. And we're like, have you ever played it? No, you haven't because you're old. Okay. And luckily, I was very good at explaining what was going on. I lucked out in having that as a kid and grew up in the military, so I understood how to appeal to a higher authority that you have no control over. And luckily they let us play eventually in the lunchroom and left us alone. But I wasn't going to get into that with D&D because that's a whole different thing, right? Like Magic the Gathering, at least say, oh yeah, but it's a card game. Like we're just playing cards. But in D&D, no, sometimes we roleplay witchcraft. Definitely a thing that might happen. Yep, for sure. We also might roleplay that unicorns are made of bubblegum. I don't know. It just depends at the table and what you're into. And that's okay. That was the part that I never understood until I got older, which it was okay for this stuff. It was okay that you roleplayed these things. For me, it was like how I tackled the concept of evil. Like I grew up in an environment where evil was prevalent. It was in my face every day, all the time. And so, how do I deal with that? Like, that's a reality I don't have any control over, but how do I do? So it started with me with mythology. And eventually I was like, well, I love video games. That was at the time, Nintendo was starting to become very popular. Super Nintendo was very popular at that time that I discovered AD. And, for me, it was like, I can now gamify mythology? Okay, this is a game changer. It's a game changer for me to understand the world because mythologies for me were, I went and read in the library as much as I possibly could and I avoided home life. And what I was doing, and I didn't realize it at the time, but what I was doing was teaching myself that I wasn't alone. That this has happened to other people in the world for thousands of years, which was freeing, also existential as AF. I realize I'm on a podcast, so I got to watch my language. But existential AF, yeah, fair enough. Existential AF. But it was also a way to, and I think this is the same with the Cthulhu mythos, which is it allowed me to sort of deal with the anxiety and emotions that came up from dealing with existentialism in a way that was healthy. And that we didn't know at that time was a healthy way to do it, that it's so healthy that medical professionals now adopt these things to help teach children about stuff. D&D is used as a therapy tool. Yeah. And improv is the exact same thing. Improv, stage or not, is just a therapy tool. And especially if you have ADHD, it helped me tremendously understand how to approach the world, that it was okay not to have a script because you don't wake up with one. People write them down and that takes time and effort and focus. And that can happen, but it's hard for you if you have ADHD, especially if it's not super interesting to you. Obviously, caveats there depending on what types of ADHD you have. I have both combined types, so for me, this is how it functions. And so practicing those things wholeheartedly also taught me how to act. And I know as cosplayers, which is what I call the gateway to LARPing, personally it was for me, it taught me that practical applications of failure, of the consequences of failure, and realizing that there's nothing wrong with it and that it is normal and that it is a constant and that what actually matters about failure is how you respond to it. And what you do with the energy that happens because of that mistake, quote unquote. And for me, that's what I learned was, okay, if nothing is a mistake because I learn from these things, and if I learn from them, then I don't repeat them. And that's the biggest problem that people don't like about mistakes is when they're repetitive because you can learn, then I'm okay. Then like all this stuff that I was taught as a child, which is like, I'm the worst and I need to like not care about, this and that was all just a fabrication. And now I can live my life. I can move day to day without a script. I can make choices on the fly. And as long as they're not deadly mistakes, if I make a mistake, it's a matter of, okay, examine, realize where you went wrong. If it hurts someone else, because that's going to happen in your life, then role play it out, right? Like genuine, obviously, when you're actually dealing with real mistakes, but
Yeah,
role play
yeah,
it out and like you're talking to
Yeah.
someone who's easier to say I'm sorry to. Like it's easier to say I'm sorry to your mom probably because you've had to do it a lot in your life, especially if you have any empathy. So if you're trying to say sorry to somebody that's hard to say sorry to, for whatever reason that is, for me it's always like, well, okay, maybe I'm talking to my brother, or maybe I'm talking to my mom, or maybe, this is more of like I'm talking to someone I care about romantically, that kind of stuff. And so for me, that was all sort of really solidifying, and why I think that D&D and role-playing games, especially tabletop role-playing games in general that rely on imagination, and especially shared and cooperative imagination, is the solution to most things. I'm not even exaggerating. In my real opinion, it is the way we get forward with other human beings 100%.
yeah, absolutely. And like, I love the thing you just said actually about like a therapy session, really, because whenever all of my friends play in person, which obviously makes a huge difference, like online
Of course.
play is passable, but in
And
person
we'll
there's a
get into
certain
that because
energy that, yeah,
I have some opinions on that for sure.
yes, please. But yeah, like the in-person energy is just, you just can't replicate it via some
Right.
virtual means, right? And
Right.
every time like we stop and think about it, my group of friends and I, and we go, basically, we're all under the shared delusion of imagining the same thing, and we're all trying to picture the exact same thing, and all of our characters doing this and that and t'other. But when we finish, we always feel great, and we always feel more connected with each other, and more like the world is set to rights, you know. And part of that obviously is just having a close knit friendship group, but also a huge part of that is due to D&D and the nature of the game, and
The
as you say, the
community
role
building.
playing.
Hmm.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
the mistakes thing is fascinating as well, because even in D&D, like you roll badly and your
All
character
the
makes
time.
a mistake,
Correct.
everything leads to a story. Everything
Absolutely.
just, you know, a really good DM will find a way to
Yep.
craft it and mold it into
That's your
moving the
life
story
too,
forward,
though.
right?
In my
So,
opinion, that's your
yes,
life. Your life is the exact same
absolutely.
way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Anyway, I know
And
I'm talking
Oh no, you're
no,
of
no, I
course.
just
questions and opinions as well, but
I think obviously I think the first thing I need to say is that I'm a person who comes to this who's never actually played. I'm incredibly interested and would love to play it at some point. So my venture into this was I used to work a lot on machinery and stuff at work and was given the chance to listen to podcasts and stuff while doing the work, and I had like 7 or 8 hours to cover, and I found the dungeon run, and even though I didn't play, I found a community. I found a community because of it. Even though I could like come on and I could easily say like I don't play myself, I found people I could talk to and stuff. And unfortunately, I have changed jobs now, so I don't get to listen as much. But
But sure.
I have entered the world of it now, and
Right.
I talk to people at Comic Con who are in that world and can openly talk to them and chat to them about it because of the dungeon run and stuff like that. And I still would at some point
It's powerful.
love to actually have a go myself.
Yeah.
It's finding the time at the minute is the
For
hard
sure.
part.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like anything, Troy. It's like anything. You have to make the
Yeah.
time for the things that you want.
Yeah.
And sometimes that means something else gets a little bit of a sacrifice because we obviously have a limited number of days or a limited number of hours in a day. But, there's one thing I've learned. I recently had a child about 6 months ago. My child just turned 6 months old. And Rowan, wow, I just visualized my son and lost my train of thought. ADHD.
that's very cute though.
Thank you. So I was making a point about this and not just talking and bragging about and prideful of my son. It was actually a point and now I've lost it. What we were talking about prior to that. Apologies. ADHD.
Community, Troy can feel like
Community.
he's part of it.
Oh, yes. So one of the things is that you don't realize. I have 2 points. The first point I can actually salient and remember, which was I look at that like football or any other team sport. I'm not saying that D&D online or the way we play is football. So please let's not be hyperbolic about it if you're listening. But what I mean is in that manner of there is a community of people who watch football and there's a community of people who play football. And there are varying levels of which that communities you're in, right? If you're a diehard fan that you watch football, you're going to have a different feel and love for this thing than someone who is literally a diehard football player who spent all their life to now be on the Super Bowl field kind of thing, where they're a different diehard community, right? But the beauty of that is it's all the same community. It's sub-communities within a bigger community. And there's one thing that I love about most of our community is that it is, especially those that are truly empathetic and caring about what's going on, they're accepting, right? It's an accepting thing. And when you start to gatekeep or say this is the right way to have fun, you've lost the plot. And that happens a good bit in our community, especially in our online communities. And I'm interested because I don't feel like that happens in real life communities. Maybe it does, and I'm just a little naive to it, but I don't feel like that happens. Like when you say we get together, right? When we get together at a table, if you were that kind of person who then tries to, like, if you came to my table and you were my even a good friend of mine, and suddenly you start trying to police how we're having fun.
Yeah.
Hey, let's have a conversation,
exactly.
person. Now, there's a difference between policing having fun and being like, this is a thing I don't like and it makes me uncomfortable. Those are two very different things. And I do not think that when you say I'm uncomfortable, you're policing fun. So again, for those who would like to be hyperbolic, I'm not talking about that kind of stuff. I'm literally talking about this is the right way to play a lich. Man, if I want my lich to be into nail salons and trying on wigs, that's what the lich is going to do. Can they end you in an instant? Absolutely. But when you're a lich and you've gone thousands of years in a reality of your own making, you probably don't necessarily care about the normal stuff that people might care about. And it could change in the drop of a hat because you spent 200 years being in nail salons and now all of a sudden I'm into torture racks. Like, this is the kind of stuff that we can play with. But again, if I'm going to do torture racks, I better know that you're all comfortable with the concept of torture before I even go that route. Because there are plenty of routes that I can choose for a lich on however they want to. It doesn't have to be the things that we say they are. And that's the beauty that I think, especially of 5e, which is it is so flexible that we can really play the games and tell the stories that we want, as ridiculous as they might be to as serious and dark as we might want them. And that's what I want to focus on specifically. So to that point, Troy, like, you're in a community that you should be in any way that you choose to be and contribute to that community. And I hope that you are proud of it, because you should be, in my opinion. That's just my...
Yeah, definitely.
That's my soapbox.
Every time we've been to Comic-Con in the UK, I see that D&D has become bigger and bigger and bigger. Like, there is more.
And it's only getting bigger.
Like, yeah, and everyone I talk to, I like to say the fact that I'm like, because there's sometimes, obviously, there is a lot of complex things in D&D that me, just from listening to it, probably won't understand. So when I'm having a conversation with someone, I will probably say, like, I am someone who's looking in and listened and stuff like that, but I haven't actually played. Never have I once found one person who just goes like, well, I can't talk to you then or anything. I found them really engaging, and they are open to talk to me on, I wouldn't say on my level, if you get what I mean, but like they understand that I haven't got the full concept of the games and everything, but they are so friendly and open to chatting about the game and everything.
There's a lot of excitement there, and the fact that you want to talk to them about it when you don't play yourself is so like, oh my God, yes, I want to, as a D&D player, I want to talk to someone who, and like talk about all this cool stuff and why I like it. So yeah, I mean,
that is
totally
also,
that
I think, the primary essence of why it's exploded, right? Like, if you look at the market share, right, I think, and I could be wrong, but when I look at these things from my perspectives, what I'm seeing is there are, of course, your niche, right? You have your niche, and the people who buy every book, and I am one of them. I do that. I buy every book. I purchase as many of the things that I possibly can, but that's because that's just what I choose to put my money into, and that's what I like. Do I have issues with the cultures of all corporations? I absolutely do. And I will talk about those things when asked about those things, and I'll be vocal about them. But that doesn't mean that I can't still take a thing, enjoy it, and make it my own, and help it tell stories that are maybe contrary to those choices and things that are made. We can still enjoy the things that we love and be out loud about the things that we do not, and that is okay. And change takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. And if you abandon the thing you're trying to change, you'll never change it. That's the worst way to change a thing, is to say, I'm done, and throw your hands up and move on. The best way to change anything is to stick to it, be vocal, and make sure that at least someone is listening, and that you are also listening as well. Again, these are things I learned in improv, right? Listen, my job as an improviser, and I try to say this to the team every time we do it, is I am there solely to make everyone else look brilliant. And if we are all working with that same mindset, we can only look brilliant at the end of it. And I think that's a mindset that we could use in every relationship in our lives. And I would make your relationships in your lives more rich because of it, personally. And again, things I learned from D&D and improv. So for me, we largely have this reality where I can say that I have made a living doing this thing, and not a great living. It's not the best living in the world, but I made a little bit of money to do it, right? And saying the only reason I can is because of people like you, Troy. Is because people who are on the edges, who don't even get into and don't even pay for the actual materials, but they'll watch the movies, they'll watch the live streams, they'll go to the cons. That is all part of our community, that without that part of the community, you're missing the veins of your community, right? So a community is not just the diehards or the people who work in the thing that is the fandom. It is a web, just like our ecosystems in every other world, natural or otherwise. It's an ecosystem. I guess the point I'm trying to make is I appreciate your I don't play this game, so I'm hesitant, but you watch this game and you probably know more than you think because it's natural. Again, like I said, improv is a natural thing. And so it's just the details and the rules maybe you don't know all that well, but those can be learned, and you're already well on the way to doing that. So again, for me, it's you're a vital part of this community, and thank you for existing.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
I think one thing I have definitely taken from it, which I've only literally just thought of, from what you're saying and stuff like that, putting it into other things and that. I love, obviously, the cosplay stuff with Dex and stuff like that, and listening to the storytelling and stuff from podcasts and stuff like that has made me want to do videos and stuff and given me ideas and stuff with my cosplays that I go out and be like, right, okay, that's given me a great idea for a character that's from comics that this has never been touched on. And why can't my character do this? Because I want him to. So, and also to make up my own character bits and stuff like that. So,
exactly.
One of my projects I am slowly aiming to work on is my own version of an assassin from Assassin's Creed, but I am not going to do one of the others. I'm going to do my own version of it. And from where I live very close to where Robin Hood was part of.
Yeah,
Nottingham.
nice.
And I'm going to try and do a version where Robin Hood was part of the Assassin's Guild.
I love that. That he's one of the assassins. That is incredible concept. That's an incredible concept.
Yeah. And I don't think I'd have ever thought.
I want to play that game now.
Concepts.
I want to play that Assassin's Creed. Robin Hood Assassin's Creed. I want to play that for sure.
So I've taken elements from listening to stuff and just put it into something else. But yeah, I have found a community that I am on the outskirts of, really caring and lovely people.
Yeah. Well, and I love that these types of communities, especially around art, it generates more art and more art and more art, right? Like that's the part that really gets me excited about it, is that I know for a fact that the choices that I made as Uggo on the dungeon run have inspired other people's decisions in all of their art in various forms. Military, especially when we were, in the studio with Fox Money, the number of messages I got from people who were in the military who were just like, I appreciate the way that Uggo thinks. And here's the thing, I was never in the military, but I grew up in the military, and so I could observe how my stepfather was thinking and how he was impacted by those things, and then apply it to my own existence in that, my battlefield was going home. That was my battlefield, and that was a real battlefield for me. Whether, no guns were shot, luckily, but it was still a fight every day, and I did it for a long time. And so for me, it was a way to share my experience, right? And realizing that others found my shared artistic experience to help them in their own lives with, one, dealing with what they were dealing with, but also inspire them to create their own art. That is probably the greatest gift that I ever got from doing the dungeon run as long as I have, is, you know, I could say all the relationships I've made, I could say the money, the little bit of money that I have made from that, but it's really, in the end of the day, the art that was made by other people, that was inspired by the art that we made, because that was inspired by someone that was inspired by someone. And that's, I think, really the point I'm trying to make here, is that's how art's made. There's nothing made in a vacuum or brand new, right? It's all, we're functions, really. At the end of the day, we're just functions. Data goes in, we do something to it, and data comes out. And that is beautiful to me in such an artistic but also logical and reasonable way. And I love it when you know, your esoteric meets your rubber of the road or reality in such a beautiful art poetic way, in my opinion. You know, so yeah. And I think D&D is just sort of what I would almost consider, and not just D&D. I'm when I say D&D, I'm talking about D&D because that's what I choose to play most of. But I'm talking about, it doesn't have to be D&D. It can be, you know, Vampire the Masquerade. I started in AD&D and then moved to Vampire the Masquerade for about a decade before I picked D&D back up, because, you know, after 3.5 came out, you know, I was around when 3 came out, and 3 was a little bit of a disaster from a player's perspective. And then 3.5 came out and fixed a lot of things, and like, this is super cool. We got some crunchy stuff, and that's where I spent a lot of my D&D time. But that was after Vampire, Werewolf, you know, Mage, Wraith, like all those White Wolf ones that I picked up and played. And actually, my first LARP wasn't even a D&D based LARP. That one became my regular one when I started doing it. But my first one was a rock, paper, scissors Vampire the Masquerade session in a castle in a castle-like building on the college that I went to. And that hooked me. That was the first real experience with LARP, because it was sort of like, I didn't have to really invest too much or get too deep into it. I could show up in my normal modern clothes. Okay, I'm a ghoul, I guess. I look like a hoodie and jeans. I'm a ghoul. This works. And I could experience it before I was like, okay, I'm into this. Now I will invest in, you know, full fantasy clothing and all the monies and stuff that I put into playing LARP for 15 years after that. But these things, experiencing this pop culture and this nerddom, taught me a lot about life. And that's, if you're interested in loving the thing that you do and you're not learning about life, that makes me sad. Like, if I hope that part of the thing that, if you are a nerd, no matter what you're a nerd in, or what pop culture thing that you love, if it's not helping inform your life in a better way, find something that does, because there's a lot out there to really be into. And for me, it's storytelling. That's really what I'm nerdy about. I like games. I think gamification of things the human brain really needs for some reason to understand. I think that's the explanation of why games have exploded in our marketplaces, is because these things help us. It's a rule set I can do. This actually functioned and worked. Whereas outside in your life, that doesn't always work out. And you've got to find a way to make that work, when this game is going to work because I know the rules and I'm playing with my friends, and this is the reality, the shared reality that you were talking about earlier, that we are working together in. And D&D for me, and, you know, tabletop role-playing storytelling games, it's fun, but it's also therapeutic, like we talked about. And I think it's, if you don't spend time on it, you should, personally.
Yeah, I agree.
It'd be very good for you.
Yeah, and there's two things that you just said there that I really like resonate with and like ascribe to myself in terms of my own like philosophy in life. And one of those things is like the way you can take elements of pop culture and apply them to your own life. And I think truly creative people, kind of harkening back to what Troy was saying about like, oh, I had an idea to do a different kind of assassin, my own original character. Like truly creative people can take elements of the fiction or nonfiction, I guess, that they really enjoy, and find a way to apply the learnings to another completely different form of art or whatever. I think especially with like the way that people consume pop culture, and the reason that I'm the way I am now is because of the pop culture I've consumed. And, you know, like go back to, you know, something that we're really, really passionate about, Troy and I, comic books and superheroes and stuff. I treat people of every walk of life like they are one of my family, because the X-Men taught me not to judge a book by its cover.
Absolutely.
Taught me that we are all just people, and we might have the same goal, but a different way of going about it. And that doesn't mean we have to be enemies. And, you know, I've carried that through my entire life. You know what I mean? Beast, absolutely. Yeah, he's
I may look like a monster, but in my head, I am not. I am an intelligent individual who brings worth to the world. Yep.
intelligent, articulate, the most
Yep.
well-read of the
Right.
X-Men, you know.
The least beast of them all.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yes, beast only in name and a name that was given by external sources, right? You
Right.
know.
Right.
And one thing you said about fun as well, like I remember like, in a different corporate job, we were doing like, what are our values? And one of my values that came up was fun. I value
Yeah.
fun. And people were like, that's
Yep.
weird. And I was like, is it? Because if I'm having fun, this is a philosophy I have. If I'm having fun, I know that's the thing that I want to be doing at that exact moment, like nothing else. So I know I'm exactly where I'm meant to be if I'm having fun then. So yeah, I really resonate with what you said. I know I could tell immediately everyone was on the same page here, obviously, but
Yeah.
it's just fascinating to hear it, to hear that perspective coming from someone like yourself too.
Yeah. Well, and it's often shared, right? Like I think I share,
Mm.
especially the shared fun aspect where we're finding fun together. I think that, again, I really think that is something we're already focusing on it with our dollars, but I think it's something we should focus on across our communities because there's so much fracture and division in our communities. And I don't know how we got there. I mean, I know how we got there, but it doesn't make any sense. I was sure that we would get through it, and it's only getting worse and worse. And for me, it's a matter of, well, we have the solution. We've been doing it for thousands of years, these solutions. I learned this mostly in high school when I read All's Quiet on the Western Front, when they described that, okay, we're going to stop the fighting for Christmas Day, and we're going to go play soccer together on the battlefield where our friends died yesterday.
Yeah.
Soldiers fighting a war decided, you know what? Today, because it's so special, today, we are not going to try to kill each other and decide who wins this disagreement. We're going to play a game. That is, it gives me chills to think about.
Yeah,
it gives me chills to think about that soldiers on the battlefield still ravaging from the stress and pressures of war, remembering that some of their friends have died, and they decided that today on Christmas Day we're going to go play a game. That blows my mind to this day. And that's what I try to remember is like, even in the darkest of times, humans will find a way to have hope and to have fun.
Yes.
Because it is vital to survival. I don't care who you are. It is vital to your life to enjoy and have a happy life. You must find and etch out, and if you must, scratch out a place of hope and fun. And that gives me hope for humanity. That's what gives me hope for humanity. And I see it every day that I play D&D, regardless of who I play it with, whether it's online. I'm focusing on storytelling rather than necessarily the fun that we're having at the table. We find fun, but not like you would at your own in-person tables. Whether it's at an in-person table, whether I'm playing with my Patreon supporters, it doesn't matter. That's, at the end of the day, for me, we can find hope and fun together, regardless of your viewpoint, regardless of who you are. You can find that. And once we find that commonality, you can grow on that. Any conversation is possible once you feel supported in hope and fun. It doesn't matter what your viewpoint is. You are now easier to talk to, and we can relate to one another. And that is how people got other people out of cults.
Yes.
If you go and listen to people and what they talk about on how they get people out of cults is they do that. You are accepted by me. I might not like what you have to say, and I think that the choices that you make, and if you hurt people in this manner, are very offensive to me, and I would stop you to try to do it. But that doesn't mean I don't think you have any value. I still think you have value. What I think is that you don't know what your value is, and I think that you're confused about your value because no one has accepted you before now, and the first people that did wanted something out of you to accept you for it. And what they wanted was another person that they could look at in a crowd and go, he hates like I do. And I use those pronouns on purpose. Use those specific pronouns on purpose.
I mean, let's be honest.
Yes, because in my experience, the people who hate the most, 9 times out of the 10 times, are not women. In my experience, 9 out of 10 times, if there's extreme hatred that's being blurted out or said or supported, it is a man. And I'm not trying to say that to try to say that men are worse than women or women are better than men. All I'm trying to identify is there's a stat. And in D&D, we pay attention to our stats.
That's true.
So I'm paying attention to the stat. And so for me, it's that. It's Look, even if you are a man who's angry, you feel alone, you've never been loved, you are, and you have worth. Stop listening to people who are trying to take advantage of the fact that you don't feel those things. Because they'll make you feel like you can, and one day, hopefully, you'll wake up and realize they're taking advantage of you, and then you got to work on all that regret that you're inevitably going to have. Mm-hmm. So, my mother taught me one thing, and she made it very clear to me in my entire life as I was growing up. The key to life is minimizing your regrets. And so for me, that's all it is. I'm just trying to have fun and love people, and we all move forward because a rising tide raises all boats. Thank you, James Hudson from Druid City Games. He has a shirt. If you don't know that game manufacturer, you should. He makes incredible games. Druid City Games. One of their t-shirts is beautiful little art that says, a rising tide raises all ships, and it's a great saying because I try to think about that all the time. Troy, you talk about it. The explosion of TTRPGs and especially D&D has happened, and because that has happened, people like me and you, we can have podcasts, we can create art, we can make our own cosplays, we can make money, we have value to people to pay us for our entertainment, for our storytelling, and that's the way to experience freedom in the capitalist environment that we exist. So without that community and without this sort of general concept of community in our creative spaces in this manner, we wouldn't have the beautiful things. We wouldn't even be having this conversation. There'd be no podcast marketplace for there to be room in to grow. Right? There'd be no me having a show that has now run for 5 years in various forms. Even when it was canceled once, by the money, we still were able to build it back up because we have a community that believes in our storytelling. And that, I think, is the most important lesson that I've learned from this stuff, is that I may not always like our community, because I think sometimes our community, it feels good to get revenge sometimes, and I feel like we feel that way because we've been ignored most of our lives. But I have actively tried to stay away from that vengeance. I think Oath of the Vengeance Paladin is a very popular paladin because it feels good in roleplay, but that's okay that it feels good in roleplay, but don't take that into real life. That part, that's the part you shouldn't take into real life. I'm not trying to get vengeance on people because I know the dark paths that can go down because I've role-played them enough and seen art made enough to know that if you fill your heart with vengeance, it's easy to become hate, and that's the thing we're trying to get away from anyway. So, for me, it's a matter of, as long as we continue to communicate and that we're all willing and trying to change and grow, then that's your community, and that's what you should focus on. And that's the type of people I like to play with. Preach.
I think the three of us here are definitely on the same page on everything you've said. I'd like to think most of our listeners are as well. And if you aren't, then that's okay. Maybe this can teach us something too. So, we'll go from there.
A good point of that is try to, I always try to listen to the other sides, even if I don't disagree with them. That's the one thing I learned in science, is that I'm trying to get all data. Your data might be an outlier, and I'll keep that in mind, but I'm still going to get the outlying data. Once I realize what it is and it doesn't give me any worth to the thing that I'm studying, then I might push it out. But I'm going to at least hear and look before I decide. And some people I've heard are like, well, you're exposing yourself to dangerous thinking. And it's like, well, yeah. Yep, I am. You're right. I'm exposing myself to dangerous thinking so that I can recognize that it's dangerous. And then once I recognize that it's dangerous, then I can reject it. But telling me that it's dangerous is only going to make me go, well, is it though? And is it like a fun, sexy dangerous? No, it isn't. Stop that. I think we should have learned this from Prohibition, right? Banning a thing only makes it more popular and more dangerous. So stop banning the things and understand the viewpoint that comes from it. And then once you understand the viewpoint that comes from it, if you want it to change, think about that as the person that comes from that point of view. I honestly think that most Trump supporters, in my personal opinion, not to get political, but if you're a Trump supporter, I don't hate you. I think you've been tricked because you want something that we all want, which is money out of politics. And I don't want to be ruled by somebody that I have no control over. I don't want other people that I didn't vote for writing laws for me. We all want those things. You want universal health care. 90% of our population, when polled, wants that. That includes diehard Trump supporters. So there's an easy way to communicate with you. I can do that. There are things that we have in common. And that's true of any, and when I'm only identifying that because that is the problem of our time, right? That's just the problem we're dealing with right now. But it's a problem that's solvable. This is the hope and the fun that I'm trying to identify, is that we have a commonality that we can all agree upon. And if we are not getting to you in that commonality, that's a failure of the people who didn't talk to you about that message. I can own that. If I didn't talk to you about the thing you actually cared about, that's on me. I thought you cared about things that are proper or not being a criminal. I thought that was a thing that you cared about. If that's not what you care about, cool. You care about healthcare. Well, I can talk to you about that. I know about that. Those things we can talk about. It's the same in D&D, nerddom, pod. We can get through these things. We got to stop being so catastrophic. Otherwise, we're going to be in a catastrophe. If your thinking is constantly catastrophic, then you're going to lead. It's self-fulfilling prophecy. You're going to lead into that. So let's stop doing that and start talking about having fun and how we can hope for the future where we can all benefit. Because again, rising tide raises all ships. Even if your ship has a leaky hull, well, we can patch that so you can also rise. It's a thing we can do. But we have to find the ways that we communicate in community. I absolutely 100% think role-playing together at a table is the perfect way to do that. It's the perfect way to have a conversation.
Phenomenal. And just for our UK and European listeners, prohibition was a thing in America that they did in like the early 90s where America banned booze, and it was a tremendous failure. So
it actually led to the rise of the mafia in the United States, right? It's actually with the and they didn't get rid of that until 50. Well, we're still dealing with it clearly, but they really didn't start breaking down until 50 years later after that. So yes, sorry, I forgot that your UK listeners don't know those U.S. history.
Dex will know. I didn't know. So thank you very much. There's a bit of history there that I didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
And then it was made worse by the war on drugs, obviously.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah,
it's
a whole different podcast.
Yeah, I'm finding this how to put into words of like you're saying about the divide and not listening and all that. I'm finding that at the minute because evidently behind me is a Superman poster.
Yeah.
In DC at the minute, it seems so divided and no one is just willing to talk about it. Rather than they're just all blurting things out about what's going on at the minute.
Yeah.
Rather than just having fun with it.
Yeah, it's panic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Change. Here's the thing, Troy. Sorry. I apologize. With my ADHD, I often talk over individuals. I'm so sorry. Thank you for being so gracious. Change, as I talked about earlier, is inevitable, right? It's the one constant we have in our lives, in my opinion. Everything changes. It all does. Nothing is permanent. It all degrades and fades. We all agree that's the existential of Cthulhu. That's the existentialism of Cthulhu, right? That's the Cthulhu mythos. But it doesn't have to be that way, and it's panic. It's panic because change is hard. Even for people who know that, like me, change is always hard. I love it when it happens. It gives me something to improve upon, and that's what brings me joy in the world, is improving upon myself and what I'm learning. And I know not everybody's motivated by that, and that's okay. But change is inevitable. So you've got to find a way to motivate yourself to live through change. Because if you don't change, we've seen what happens in nature when things don't bend. Right? There's a lot of cultural, we don't get much of it in the US, but I've read other cultures, and the reed in the wind, if it bends, it's going to survive to live another day and to get it bigger and stronger. Whereas if it stays rigid and breaks, it's gone. So be like the reed in the wind and be bendable, right? Like be able to, I still have my foundations. I still got that thing that's keeping me in the ground, but I'm not going to let any resistance break me because it's just a matter of flexing to it and changing with it. You know, I can see in the background that you got what look like a lot of martial arts or weapons of different types. And I think, you know, in the studying that I have done in karate and some of the other, I don't talk a lot about this because it's not my culture. So I just experience it quietly and I enjoyed it. But what I've learned of these things, I can share because that's my experience. And what I learned was, you know, oh, okay, yeah, you can, it's science, really. It's physics. I can move the momentum of someone else's kinetic energy using far less of my own to get into a place where now I can apply even less kinetic energy in a place that's going to be harder to deal with. And I overall spent less energy than you did because I was just smart about how I moved to changes that you were bringing upon me. And that, I think, is a really strong concept for me was, okay, I don't have to expend as much energy as you are bringing to me. I can match it for sure, but I don't have to spend as much. I can be a little bit more efficient if I'm bendable and I can think about things and I can adapt, change. Improv, D&D taught me those things. How to change,
Absolutely.
how to adapt to situations. All of a sudden, there's a dragon in the sky that's firing. You know, we were tricked. We're ambushed by some goblins in some trees, and now there's a dragon attacking us in the sky. If we don't change, dragon fear is the first thing you're going to have to worry about. And if you don't adapt to that pretty quickly, it's over. It's going to be over pretty quick. So, Paladin, we should get close to him right now. Or them right now, excuse me. We should get close to them right now because they're going to help us with that. This is the adaptation. These are the things that we can learn, right? We can learn these not just in gameplay, but we can learn them in life. And if we get good at doing that in games first, then it's easier to apply to more and more complex things that are real.
That's a really good point. And I think, I mean, just being a DM, you have to be completely adaptable. You can prep everything that you possibly think that your players can do, and then they will do something completely different that you've never prepared for. So there's always adaptability,
Jeff,
always an element of improv, you know, so.
Yeah, Jeff always talked about, complained. I say complained. He didn't really complain, but it's every DM's complaint. But he would always say that. And as the other DM at the table, like the forever DM at the table while we were together, like it was always like, yeah, Jeff, I get it, man. Like I'm with you. It's what you do. I don't know how, because he's a novelist DM is what he's what I call a novelist DM, where he's writing this and adapting the things that he's written to what we're doing. And I don't know how he did that, because I am not that type of DM, and it was impressive to watch for as long as he did it.
Mm.
Especially considering the time constraints he had, and it was. I'm still in awe of that every time I think about it. It was a pleasure to be at the table with him, and that's it. It's like you don't have time. You could spend. We talked about this all the time, Jeff and I. You could spend hours prepping a thing, and well, we're throwing that out the window because you didn't go there.
Yep.
So you got to build these to steal from the Sherlock show. You got a mind palace is what Jeff and I called it. You build this mind palace so that you know generally what's going on, so that when you adapt, I have stat blocks for a person. Oh, that might have been a person in this city, but they're not going there right now. I can create a new one. I'll drag them over here. They don't know he wasn't there 2 seconds ago, but now they do. So, prep enough and give yourself the framework, and you can fill in the putty, right? You can fill in all the details as you go. So good prep work is the best.
That's jogged my memory that there was I seem to think it was a bonus episode where Jeff took you back at one point, and it was like, he said, we're going back to this point because I created an entire town and side story where you never went, and I wanted to do it. So we're now going to do that now and actually show you what happened.
Yeah, that was
exactly what it was.
I forgot the name of the title of the episodes, but it was Jeff. We came back to the table. Jeff took us through a circus. It was to a circus. Yeah. If you haven't seen I can't remember the name of the episodes, which makes me a bad producer off the top of my head, but we have so many episodes.
So many.
It's insane the number of episodes we have.
I actually remember you said
really
earlier
good story.
about when the show first got cancelled.
Yeah.
I had got so invested. I actually remember exactly where I was and everything when that episode came out, because I'd got so invested at work. I was like, can I go off and do this by myself, because I can listen to the new episode of the Dungeon Run while I do it? And I remember being broken that day when that episode came out. I was so upset. So I was like, I have found this thing that means a lot to me now, just listening to that. I've got so invested in these characters, and it's just coming to an end. It can't. And I was so happy when it came back, when I went back on the page and suddenly there was another episode. I was like, no way.
The only reason that happened is because there was a change. And look, I don't have any... I don't like that they canceled the show, but I totally understand why they did. I totally get why they did that. And there's no ill will, never has been, with Caffeine or the decision makers of that particular aspect, because we pivoted. We're an improv team, and we knew that any change just means we've got to use that change to our advantage. And because we handled that with such good grace collectively as a group, we were able to, over a series of years, to finally own the thing that we created. So we own it now. It's ours. Dungeon Run is, we own it. And so that's only happened in the last year. Less than a year has gone by since we've been able to secure that. But I'm excited because there are still things that are going to be announced and are coming that are, I think, huge, that are I'm excited about because we own it now. We are able to, now we can do what we want. Jeff can write a novel. He's already been doing that. He's announced that he's written a novel. So that'll be coming out essentially. I have been, all of this work that we've been doing on, especially in the second season of all the characters that are created and the monsters and all that, those I'm planning on putting in a campaign guide and want to include, of course, everything from season 1 as well in that and do that campaign guide. You know, our con schedule this year is greater. So, you know, we'll be doing WonderCon, Comic-Con here in the US, and we're expanding beyond that, beyond this year as well. So for us, it's very exciting, the Dungeon Run, because we got canceled, so everything sort of shrank. You know, your daily views shrink because everybody thinks you're gone, and once you think you're gone, they're like, well, I got to find something else. And I love that. I know that as a fan of my own, you know, plenty of TV shows that I love that got canceled, then I had to find new loves for. It's the same with this, but we're still strong and we're still doing different things. We've done a lot of charity stuff, and I'm very proud of what we're doing, and I'm excited to see where it goes in the future, because Morgan and I especially have been working really hard to keep this thing afloat and to find new ways to tell stories. And now that we have connections even in the UK with Josephine and some of the other people out there that we know, Jasper and them, we might even have some ability to start doing international. At least that's my hope for the future as well, as we start doing that kind of stuff. But yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
D&D in general, do you prefer playing or do you prefer DMing?
You know, my wife Heather asks me this all the time. They're two different things. It's like, do you love TV or movies? Yes. TV, I get to watch a longer story over bits and pieces, right? I get on average here in the United States, it's 10 episodes, usually an hour long for dramatic stuff. So I get 10 hours to tell a story, or I get 2.5. Different stories are told different ways, and some stories are 2.5 hours. So it's like, do you love one-shots or do you love campaign settings? Yes. It's the same with playing. I like DMing because I can play a lot of different characters, and I'm manic that way, but I also do, but I do love deep diving into one character. I did that. My LARP character was the same character for 15 years.
Wow.
So, yeah. So that, you know, and I played in games that were 10 years long, and I played the same character. So I love a deep dive like that, like years long deep dive. And that's what really taught me how to act, was those really deep dives into one character taught me this is how you do character development. But improv taught me that, yeah, you want a new character? Cool. Let's throw me a random thing. Let's do it. So again, two different things that I love equally. I will do either, given the opportunity. If I had to choose, it would depend on who I'm playing with. If I really had to choose whether I'm going to DM or play, it depends on who's at the table. There's some people I want to play with, some people I want to DM with. So it's just a matter of that.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Absolutely fair answer, yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that I really wanted to ask is, when you started taking over as the DM, obviously the Stormborn campaign started and everything, and you designed this world and came up with this world with Jared. It was the two of you, I believe, at that point. And I just wanted to get into, how does that even start? Because obviously there's creating a character.
Yeah.
But then there's creating a world, because you did the world, the other realms that they venture into and everything like that. I'm like, I found it incredible how that you just came up with, and the characters traversing the world again and going to new spots. And where does that even start?
Well, it starts with trust, like anything in this, especially in online play. I think in all play, but online play, trust is a huge thing. Obviously, in-person play also, trust is a huge thing, but that's a little bit more. I would hope that your in-person play sort of already has trust built into it because you're playing with your friends. So if they're your friends, I would assume there's already some trust there. You should still have your trust conversations, even with your close friends, but it's a different beast than I'm randomly playing with people online with strangers, or I'm going to an audition and playing with people I've never played with before. So that's the thing about acting, is I have to be intimate with people I've never met, and I've got to sell it to you Like we have been either the best friends that we've ever known or the worst enemies that we've ever known, or some varying degree of those things, with a person that I've truly never had a conversation with, most likely. That is very hard to do. You know, a lot of people have become actors. That's okay. I think there's a room for that. People are actors because they're pretty. People are actors because they have a unique skill. People are actors because of certain things. But true drama, comedy actors, that is not easy. It takes time, it takes effort, and it takes instruction. And when you find people who are good at it after those things, you can tell. Obviously, you can tell. We watch them. We know those individuals. And so for me, it's that. It's trust. Jared, I knew. I had DM'd for him, and a true story. So Adam, who's in season 2, I met Adam during season 1 because I was running a campaign for Jared, Adam, and a couple of other his real-life friends, and got to know Adam through that play. We played for probably a year or so in that campaign, and was always impressed with Adam's ability during that campaign, let alone all the stuff that I saw him afterwards. Man can sing, you know, he's a very talented individual. And through that process, I learned to trust Adam, and then Adam learned to trust me so that we can do these things. In season 2, you know, we went a little darker with it because, I mean, let's not be, season 1 was pretty dark. Season 2, we also went dark because it's a different situation, and we truly, at the end of the day for TDR, what we love is really good dramatic scene work. That's what we're trying to do. That's what we're trying to get in front of you all the time. Care about the characters, care about the relationships, and help watch them get over the obstacles that we put in front of them. And so for Jared and I, it started pretty easily. It started with, hey, let's make a map. And we did some videos on that where, you know, he came over here. I have a shite ton of dice, and we just threw them on a table, and, you know, D4s were these things, D20s were, you know, we assigned values to those things, and then drew a map in that way. And that's the maps that we have, the two islands. That's what we have. That's what it came from. It all started from throwing dice on a table and drawing some wet erase markers. You'd be surprised. That's one thing I also talk about in other podcasts is, and Jeff and I have even talked about this on some of our own talkback shows, and Morgan and I have as well, which is, if I give you a blank sheet of paper and I tell you to draw something on it, good luck. You might be good enough to do that, and kudos to you if you can. But I am willing to bet that if you're good at that, it's because you found a way to limit yourself without the need of somebody else limiting yourself. But if I threw black ink on that white piece of paper and then told you to draw something, you do it easily, very quickly. Because limit inspires creativity. Limitation gives you energy and inspires artistic reaction. That's what, in my opinion, I think that's where art started. Somebody said no to someone, and they're like, you know what? I'm going to make a poster about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I so completely agree with this. Yeah.
But that's what they started with. I think you're muted. I can't hear you.
Am I back?
Oh, no, my headphones died. I'm muted from you. My headphones died. 1 second. Sorry.
No problem. We can cut this out. The magic of editing. No one will know any of this happened. So, how are we doing? We good?
Nope, not yet.
Not yet.
It's on.
Almost there.
Hold on.
It's all good.
Okay, now I can hear you. Great.
Cool.
Apologies
Yeah.
about that. Okay. Sorry about
that. No worries. Yeah, no one will know this happened because this is the magic of editing.
All right, isn't it fun?
Yeah.
Editing is great.
Yeah, we'll be good. Yeah.
I was talking about
limitation creates creativity.
Thank you. So drawing a map in that way is a way of limiting, right? Because that map wasn't drawn before and it had an open field that I could put anything on it. Giving ourselves that limitation helped us create things. And soon it was like, ooh, what if this is here and that's there? And like, ooh, what's a name for that? And then you throw out names to each other and it names something, and that name alone would be like, oh yeah, that's a really good place to do this. Now, what we also did was we took that to our audience. We went to our Patreon supporters and we're like, hey, there's a couple cities here. What happens here? Here's a couple of options. What do you think? What should go here? What does this mean? And, we're having to build at least, here's the thing about world building. No matter how you do it, you're not going to be perfect at it. Because you can't be. Like, you just can't. There's so much of a world. No matter how much time you took, you could not build a perfect world. There are going to be holes in everything that you build. But that's okay, because no one's going to see those holes that are there. Because they're going to be in some other place in the world that you have fleshed out really well. And if you haven't done that yet, then you will, because you know they're going to go there and you'll flesh it out. The only people that know whether it was there or not before they experience it is you. So be flexible enough to, I have an idea. Here's the shape of my framework. Here's what I know the island looks like. What people are there? I don't know. I'll know when someone asks me what people are there and I have to make a decision. And then that decision becomes something I have to track.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And luckily we live in a time where we have a lot of tools to do that. It used to be you couldn't, and you had to write those down, and then it became really hard to like have a world that way. Now it's really easy because we have plenty of tools to help us do that. And we have communities to help us do that. So that's really what it was, okay, now this is a thing. Okay, where are they going to start? Well, they're probably going to start here in the frigid north because that's hard to deal with, and that's really interesting storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
Cool, let's do that. And then it was a matter of, okay, Jared, you're going to do these first 5 as the primary DM, and I will be your support. And all that means is I'm working, and then we divvied up the world building stuff. He would create cities when they got there, and I would do the Pantheon, because I love mythology and Pantheon stuff. So I made the Pantheon. He, of course, had his say in the Pantheon. He always had input, and we always trading back and forth. But in terms of who was responsible for creating those things, I was the one who created the Pantheon. And then we agreed on the world stuff and the cities and races and all that kind of stuff. And Jared had to step back. Now it's on me. Now I have to, and we've built the story in a way that I have to like shift and pivot things choices we already made. And now that those choices have already been made and we have to shift, now I've got to find unique solutions to solve problems that we've introduced that now are not solvable because I'm one DM rather than 2. And that's not a problem. That's just a solution. That's just a thing I have to figure out. And that's fun as a DM for me and as a producer. That was a fun thing to do. And sometimes that means the apocalypse happens, you know? So, or what they thought was the apocalypse happens. I won't ruin the story for you. The apocalypse occurs. And so, you know, that throws your players for a loop because they're like, wait, what? Everything that we know and love is ending? And it's like, well, yeah. Have you ever read Marvel or DC?
Yeah.
You ever read those comics? They do that all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. You know where they got it? The Greeks, the Romans, the Indians, the Indian people of the Southeast Asia. You know, those Buddhism, all these different religions with their mythologies had these kind of stories. The most, I don't want to offend anyone because I grew up Christian. I still call it mythology, but that's because I understand what the word mythology means, and it's not an insult to your belief or your religion, as calling any of those things would be an insult to those things. There's a definition of the word mythology, and it just happens to apply to Christian faith. That's okay. There's no moral statement about that when I say it's a mythology. And that mythology is all about the catastrophe, right? It's all about the apocalypse. Like, this is a thing that we know about and that humans constantly are trying to fantasize about. Think of how many apocalypse movies we have and how much money they've made. Oh, for me, it's that. It's like, yeah, of course I threw that in you. All of our art for the last hundreds of years has been doing that to you. Of course I'm going to do that to you. There's going to be explanations for it, and we're going to get through it together. But that's interesting for people. And when it starts to rain blood, yeah, that's a problem. And that's going to be fascinating for anyone to listen to, regardless of whether you're slipping in it and it's joking, or, oh my God, it's raining blood and you're treating it as real. That's an interesting thing. Is it horrible and hard to get through? Yes, as the apocalypse would be.
Yeah. That's
so. But you had fun. You were able to deal with that, but you didn't die. Like, you're not actually dying. So now you've got a chance to think about what would happen if it started to rain blood. Have you ever done that before? Have you ever just thought about, like, you know what? If it started to rain blood outside, what would I do? Like, what would I do? What would you do? Have you ever thought about that?
I can't say it's a conscious thought I've had.
No. And the only reason I've ever had that conscious thought is because I was thinking about something as a DM and was like, what's interesting? And I'm like, man, what would it be like if it literally just started raining blood and guts outside randomly? Like, you know, meatballs are always a chance of meatballs. Always sunny and a chance of meatballs. That's not a thing.
Always.
Although
sunny.
I do like that.
Wait, cloudy with a chance of meatballs.
Chance of meatballs.
Yeah, we got there.
But now I want to do. You talk about smashing things together, Troy. Now I want to do it's always sunny and it's cloudy with a chance of meetballs slammed together.
God.
That would be really interesting to me.
Danny DeVito, cloudy with a chance of meatballs.
Just
Running around
meatballs are coming. Yeah.
Amazing.
Rum ham. So,
God.
That's this is where the satanic panic, I think, came from. It was because be like, someone's going to think about it's raining blood outside and they're going to want that to happen. It's like, no, I don't want that to happen. I don't want it to rain blood outside. Maybe in this game I'm playing, that'd be fun. See how they react to it and how they try to survive. I think that's interesting. We got to get through it. It's got to be storytelling devices, but I think that's fascinating. Let's do that. Don't want to deal that in real life. Would never pray to the blood god to make it rain blood. Don't want that to happen.
No, he's just waiting. He's just like, come on, somebody,
Right.
please,
Just
somebody.
just one person. I just need the one person to do it, and it'll happen. And you know, so for me, it's that. It's that kind of. I'm fascinated that D&D brings this kind of thing around, because one thing I have learned, especially because I lived in a world where catastrophe was real in my world, which is you have to think about what you're going to do when something goes wrong. And if you haven't put any thought about that, and granted, I'm a person who has a general anxiety disorder, so a lot of that was probably because I was just anxious all the time, and that's what I needed to think about in order to survive. But there is a philosophical benefit to doing that. And I think DMing and storytelling gives you the opportunity to do that without traumatizing yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that sentiment as well.
Yep.
I'm just curious, actually, in terms of the many years you've had with Dungeon Run, or actually any other campaign, what has been your one, not necessarily your favorite, but one moment in universe that sticks out in your mind? Can you just describe it for us? Like, paint the picture. What happened here, and why does it really stick out in your mind?
Yes. So I think it's sort of a little bit of a spoiler alert for the Dungeon Run Season 1, especially around Ugo's backstory. I mean, this is such a big moment in all of the D&D games that I've ever played, which is Ugo, to save his own people from the dark influence of an aboleth. He sacrifices his own ability to be a paladin, or to be a barbarian. All of the levels that he had in barbarian, he sacrifices to their great tree in order to rid it of the sickness and infection and corruption of an aboleth. And Ugo is a very good paladin, or barbarian, excuse me. He's a very good barbarian. He's very good at it. And in that process, you know, there's some of the party, there's some conflict with the members of the party because they're telling him that he's making a mistake. But he knows that at his core, that this is what he was literally made to do, to be the strength that survived the darkness, to come back, having learned the lessons that his friends taught him about kindness and love and standing up for things, and saying, well, the greatest thing that I can do then is let go of all of this anger and hatred that I have towards this darkness. Because whether I'm justified in hating darkness. I think you're justified in hating Nazis. I think that's a justification. You can hate Nazis, that's okay. But what you can't do is really love the hatred that comes out of that. Right? If you love the hatred, you've lost the plot, and now you love hatred and not trying to change a thing you do. And for me, that's what everything with Ugo was in that moment. Was this is an opportunity for Ugo to take all the things that he wishes he could teach to the people that are his people, that he only learned because he mixed with other people that weren't his people, and brought those lessons back and said, here's what's good, here's what we believe that is not good. We should get rid of the things that we don't think are good and keep the things that we collectively agree are good. And here's, I will allow you, I will give myself, not allow you, I will give up myself so that you have the opportunity to do that. How you choose to do that is going to be up to you. I'm just going to give you the opportunity. And where did I get that from? Where did I learn that ultimate sacrificial message, that giving for others so that they can be better? I learned that from the Christian mythology.
Of course.
But it's not just the Christian mythology that had that concept in it. I think Christian mythology probably got that from another mythology that also thought it, and that came from a mythology that is now dead that they took it from. Because just like art, what we believe grows from the things that came before us. And as we change and grow, we learn new things. And those things become more like gods and goddesses or superheroes, and less our actual belief system. But we find new things to believe in. We find new things that I learned a little bit more. Gravity is probably the greatest thing towards a god that actually exists, right? Because it's a force that I can't interact with or change, but it is there. It literally is the reason we could breathe. It's the reason the sun is in the sky. It is literally the reason for everything that exists. To me, esoterically speaking, just looking at a philosophical standpoint, that's probably as close to a god as I can imagine. I can't pray to it and make it change. But I can learn its lessons and learn the rules that it forces me to live under, and change and adapt to those things. So that's how we get airplanes and rockets and all these other things that we built that did not exist before we did, and now do, because we looked at a thing that we have no control over, and we're like, well, I'm not going to let that stop me. I'm going to have fun and hope to fix it. And that's the space race, if you ask me. That's what the space race was. That was the essence of the space race. Is, hey, we're gonna have fun doing this. It's gonna create a lot of jobs. It's gonna make us. We're gonna study a lot of things we didn't study before. And the end result will be you will see a person on the moon. That's insane. At that time, that's insane. It's still insane. I still think it's insane. And obviously some people think it's insane because we have flat earthers and moon landing deniers. Sure. You can have those things. That's your fandom. Have that fandom. My fandom is the truth. My fandom is the truth and what we can prove. That science, which is what truth is. That's what truth is. Truth is what you can prove to me. Everything else is up for debate, because just like we agree to be in a community and believe at this table this is our reality, our brains do that to you. If you look at the research of how your brain works, it's inventing most of what you see all the time. But there are still things that we agree upon. Even if we're both inventing those things, there are still things we agree upon. So why does that happen? If your brain is interpreting, depth perception is entirely made up by your brain. It doesn't exist. It's entirely fabricated by your brain, but we love it. We love it. And in fact, when you put more depth perception and stuff, it gets people to really excited. They'll watch it longer. Like if you just add a little bit of depth perception to the things that you put online, which you can do very easily now, people will watch it longer. Statistically true. That's fascinating to me. This stuff is the kind of stuff that I deep dive on, and that's fascinating to me. That your brain invents depth perception, that it is not real outside of your brain. That is crazy to me. The fact that when I move closer to you and you move closer to me, our relative times are different, and we're aging at different times. It's minuscule, so that it's not even worth calculating because it's so tiny, but that's happening, and that's crazy to me. And the faster you go, the slower that difference is, and it's insane. It's insane that these are real things, but those are real things. And that's like the essence of storytelling is I'm just trying to understand this crazy thing. Having a baby will remind you, I should say, because you've already been taught because you were a baby, but having a baby will remind you that being born is incredibly difficult. That learning to deal and numb yourself to the energy and world around you is insanity in practice. It literally is. Babies cry because they're alive.
That is, I don't disagree.
Dealing with the world is hard, but we find ways to do it. And how do you get babies to love and learn how to do that? Fun and hope. It starts when you're a child, and it'll go until the day you die. And as long as you're doing that, then in my opinion, you're living a fulfilling life, and if you're having fun and looking for hope.
I bloody well hope I still have fun and hope when I'm at the end of my life and nearing whatever end that may be, and that I can look back and go, yeah, that was fun, and I had a lot of hope.
That was fun, and I had a lot of hope. And I have hope for people who will come beyond me when I'm gone.
Absolutely. Anyway, I love the philosophical angles that we're taking with D&D questions.
I can't not do that. That's just my daily life. It's how I think about things. I wish my brain was sometimes I wish my brain was a little different than it is, but wishing that never has changed it in the 43 years I've been alive. So, I will continue to wish it, but I'll deal with what I have. And when you give me the opportunity to talk to you about why I do these things, it ain't going to be surface level. I just can't. Nothing against it. Nothing against it. Pop culture is at its surface, very surface level. And I'm okay with that. I love it. It's just not what I like to do. If we're going to have a conversation, we're going to talk about something that challenges me, but also hopefully you, because I think that's the way I can I think that's the best way that I can bring anything to people. That's the best way I can think I can impact a person is, hey, let's think a little deeper about the things that we're saying to one another.
Yeah. The best question on earth is why. It's the best question ever. And
Yeah.
one thing we like to do on this podcast is ask people why they do a lot of the things they do, or why they make decisions that they do, or why their life has turned out the way they are. And you're doing a lot of that for us. So, I mean, in my mind, it's like a lot of the legwork is just being like taken and run with by you, which is great. So yeah.
I think, that's just how I survived, like from my childhood, which I've identified as was very difficult. It was just introspection was the best way to sort of help me understand the world around me. If I knew here, if I knew this, then all of this is knowable because I know this. But when I don't know this, it's anxiety and it's panic and so what I've learned is, okay, get into a room, get things quiet, and think about thought. Just think about thinking. Your brain will take you where you need to. It'll do that for you. But just think about thinking. Think about why you think the things you think. You may not know, and it's okay that you don't. It's okay that you don't know why that you think the things you think. I have intrusive thoughts all the time. It comes with the general anxiety disorder. I still have to think about thinking things. And I think if we all thought a little bit more about what we say and do, there would be less division. Especially if you thought about, if I said this to myself, if I heard someone say this thing that I'm about to say to me, and I changed the words and the identities to be my words and my identities, and I had someone say that out loud, how would I feel? And if it makes me feel not good, then I'm not going to say that thing out loud because it doesn't need to be said.
Yeah.
And I think that goes into, the only reason I'm thinking that is because I hope for people and I want to have fun. And if I want to have fun, it means I want others to have fun. And if I'm not thinking about what I'm saying to others when they're having fun, then I don't care about whether they're having fun. I care about whether I'm having fun. And that's fucking selfish. And sometimes it's okay to be selfish, especially if you beat up on yourself a lot. It's okay to be selfish. Sometimes you need to be in order to survive. But that is not, I try my best for that not to be my general stance, is like me. It's hard because that's what your brain wants you to do. You're fighting. I say this all the time, is we are given a thing that we have no control over. It's a chemistry set we have very little control over. I have no knobs I can turn to change the chemistry in my brain. And so I'm born with what I'm born with, and I have to deal with the world around me with that tool set. Good luck. That's pretty much it, right? That's pretty much it. So fun helps me change that. It helps me have a little control over that chemistry set. If I'm having fun, I know I'm getting dopamine. And for the most part, because I have ADHD, I know that's going to be beneficial for me because I already have trouble manifesting it naturally. So I've got to do things that make me manifest it, like miss a deadline or work an all-nighter or, hyper focus on something that's really fun and gives me rewards quickly, like an RPG. Those are the things that I have to, that's my chemistry set. This is the one I was born with. Now I have meds that help me with that, luckily, but we also tie those meds to money. So, not everybody can afford those meds, so we got to find something else. Fun is the way that I found to do that. Find the friends that are like you, that have similar mindsets, that also challenge you. That's my friendship moment. We have a good vibe, but do you also challenge me? Like if I say something that's a little deep or there is gray area, are you willing to stand up for what you believe and explain it to me? And if you are, I'm willing to do that with you too. That's a good friendship, in my opinion. It means we're going to make each other better, and that means we're all going to be better friends as we move along. And I love that about friendships, is when we can have it's a warrior philosophy, right? It's I fight you in practice because when we get on the real battlefield, we're going to have been better, both of us, because we practice together.
Yeah.
And you know that we can practice fighting because I'm not trying to kill you. You know and can trust that it's safe. We can be a little aggressive with it because at the end of the day, I'm not going to try to actually end your life. I'm just trying to help you learn that when someone is, how to stop that. I come from a military background, so a lot of this is like war and battle for me, just because that's the way I was raised. But it applies to things that are not battles outright, right? Disagreements are a battle. It's a battlefield. If you have a disagreement, you don't have to kill each other over it, but you're going to have a conflict. Every conflict is a battle of some sort. So for me, again, this stuff gives us a way to learn how to battle well and how to battle ethically, if you ask me. That's really, how to fight ethically. Because just because I might disagree with you on something and I might fight for it, that doesn't necessarily mean that your side isn't worth fighting for and worth fighting against. Now, I would say if your stance is hurting someone else, maybe that's a problem. But if we're talking about like how we get money for healthcare. We're going to get money for healthcare, but how we do it, and we're very passionate about that fight. We can have that fight. That's great. That's a good fight to have because we both agree we're going to get healthcare at the end of it. So whatever battles we have are going to be fun and hopeful.
It's a good recurring theme.
Yeah.
If there's anything that we could take away, fun and hope.
That's improv too.
I like that. So.
Find your.
It's a catchphrase. It just kind of works. Right. Yeah.
And it makes it interesting for the human brain to read and watch. It's like, oh, they keep going back to that. Yay, dopamine. Yeah.
Very true. Very true. Sorry, Troy. I think you had something else you wanted to ask. Maybe.
Sorry, y'all. I told you. I warned you. If you let me talk, I would talk and talk and talk.
Hey, we knew what we were getting into, and we're here for it. Yeah.
It's really interesting for me to hear insights into aspects of D&D that I'd never even thought about, because obviously, as I've said, not a player. I was like, oh, I'm going to learn about playing, but I have learned about playing, but then I've learned, as you said, a lot deeper about the meanings of why people do it, the meanings of the community and stuff like that. Honestly, it's really interesting to hear that the D&D is more than just a game.
Yeah.
It is, as you say, community and all. It's so much more than just a piece of paper with a number on it of a character.
And if you ask me, this is how Wizards should be talking about their game. I absolutely believe this is how Wizards should be talking about their game, and they've started to talk about it in this manner a little bit, especially Chris. They've been talking about it in a manner this way. But I think that's, if you really want to blow this thing up, even more so. Create cool stuff. I love the new rule set. The new rule set is fantastic. If you ask me, I think they've made a lot of changes that are very good, and I'm excited about it. But we are in this world where the algorithm decides and outrages the driver, and so people are outraged about this stuff, and I'm getting fed to me, and I'm like, but I actually look at this stuff, and what y'all talking about, you didn't go deeper. You put that into AI and output that. That's what you did. You put that in AI, and AI gave you the surface. You didn't ask it to go deeper. It output the surface, and now you have your opinion because that's what you think is true. But read these rule sets. Look at the cool stuff of masteries. Look at especially the new monster manual that just dropped. I was looking through some of that and was watching Ginny D's videos on those things. Man, they made some really good things that that I had done on my own for monsters. They went and put in there. And when they do that, I go, that's a good thing. Holy crap. They did what I was doing. Holy wow, that's great. That means somebody else was thinking about it and made a good choice. Not all of my choices are good. That one just happened to be, in my opinion. Especially changing, goblins being fey. Why haven't they been fey for a long time? Same with gnomes. Why are gnomes not fey? Into my experience, they're fey creatures. The things, and that's my perspective, but these things are happening, and I love that they are happening. They're actually taking a look at these things. So if they pivoted to being that message all the time, hope and fun, and these are ways to build community, and these are ways to learn together, and these are ways to end division, I guarantee you, and you did the things to support that message, not just said the message, you did it also to support that message, I guarantee you it would explode. Even more so than it already has.
Hey, great feedback. Thank you very much. And honestly, thank you for shouting out the new rule set as well, because I personally, I would say this, but I do love that. I do actually agree with most of the changes that have been being made into 5th edition.
Yep.
It's funny because a lot of my friends, when we're just talking, my D&D friends and stuff, will go, oh, remember that time when, and we'll talk about something that happened in game, it just happened to us in our lives. Remember that time when you were we're running across that bridge and then it started to collapse and then I had to jump, but then you grabbed me, and if not for that, I would have fallen. And someone pipes up and they're like, oh, but it's okay, I would have feather falled you. Yeah, but you didn't have to. Sam got me. And moments like that literally live in our memories, in our muscle memory, in our brain memory, in our souls. They go a bit esoteric here, but it's these are real. It's more than a game, exactly as Troy, as you said. It's on the subject of the game, and just some random quick fire questions, just out of my own curiosity.
Of course.
What is your favorite class to play?
Man, in the new rule set, it's probably going to be different, but it's always been cleric for me.
Fair.
But I also grew up with, again, mythologies, and clerics are sort of the pillars of those things. Paladins, obviously, but Uggo was a paladin. I had played paladin before. I enjoyed it. Uggo as a barbarian was my first play through with a barbarian. I'm thanks to Baldur's Gate 3, and I know it's a little different than the rule set, obviously, but it's close enough that I can experience, what a class is like a little bit before I play it, and that's been fun. That's also why I did a lot of charity games, was like, because I could just, okay, I've never played a bard, I'm going to put a bard together. I've never played a frog wizard, so I'll be a frog wizard, that kind of stuff. So that's fun, but for me, it's probably cleric. There's just so many. It's so flexible. That class is so flexible. You can do a lot.
You can tank, you have spells, you can be up in it or away from it. Yeah. Anyway,
and with the changes in the new rule set, they've added even more to that flexibility, which I think is great. Yeah. Just naturally, you don't have to do subclasses to get the flexibility. You can just natural choices, which I think is a great game design.
My Baldur's Gate knowledge comes from Dex, because Dex and his partner cosplay from Baldur's Gate quite a bit. Katie's actually won cosplay competitions as, remind me the name of the character.
Karlach. She won the Insomnia.
Nice.
The Insomnia cosplay competition as Karlach. So yeah, and I do Astarion because he's just fun. So
yeah, he is. Oh man, vampires, whole nother podcast. Podcast.
And we could have you again just to talk about Vampire the Masquerade, because I do love that rule set also. But yes, anyway, if someone like Troy, for example, wanted to get into D&D, what would be like the best starting point? How would someone start playing D&D?
Well, the first thing is you got to find a DM, and that used to be real hard, which is why I became Forever DM, because I was the only one really willing to do it, and that's why we played. But now it's a lot easier, right? We have a lot of tools to help us. Start.playing is great if you've never used it. I did some early, when they first started, I did some early charity events for them that went really well. And that was a lot of the people that I interacted with in the charity were like new to D&D. So Start.playing is a great place. The thing is, you're going to have to pay for that, probably. You could also find someone like me. I have a Patreon. So when the pandemic hit, and OnlyFans became a really big thing, right? It was all in the zeitgeist. I created a Discord server because I was streaming. I was, I'm going to stream regularly. I have the time. I'm going to stream regularly, play games, talk philosophy, that kind of stuff. And so I named my Discord, and this is true. It still is named this, Only Rons. It's stupid. It's dumb. It's a super dumb name. And I did it on purpose because I felt like to me, it was like I'm selling myself. I'm making this Discord and having a fan base because I'm selling myself, which is what I'm doing as an actor. Literally, the first agency I ever worked with was called The People Store. They sell people because that's what you do when you're an agent. You sell people to commercials. They did really well for me. Yeah, I mean, right, yeah. I appreciated the upfrontness of that and signed on, and I made a lot of money with them because I was in a lot of stuff with them. So for me, it was like a tongue-in-cheek thing. It was dealing with the pandemic, and it was like, this is fun for me. This is satire. I love satire, even though it's mostly dead in the world now because of the internet, Poe's Law. So I was like, Only Rons. And so my fans, if you just free tier and you just want to hang out and see what's going on, then you're part of the you're part of the Rontourage. Excuse me, not Rontourage. You are part of my Rontourage are my people who actually pay for the show, who help support me. And now they are doing some improv and D&D with me. But my general audience are called I gotta look at my roles here. I forgot what they call them. Because they're all stupid, forced puns.
Excellent puns, I think you mean.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I do exactly. I do appreciate people who love bad puns. Yeah, and that's really it. It was like it was all tied to like, you're gonna remember who I am.
My Discord name is Tyrannosaurus Dex.
I love that. Tyrannosaurus Dex is great. That is fun. Here they're called the Ronabes.
If you wanna be my lover.
Right. So Ronabes, if you're just free tier and you want to hang out and maybe play some games sometimes. If you subscribe to my Twitch, you're a Rontourage. And then I have my VIPs, and so I started doing Patreon games where you can sign up for a month and you get 2 seats at one of my tables. And so I set up tables. So I have 3 tables going right now. And you can do, if they're varying levels. Including a private table. If you want a private table with me, there's a cost monthly for that, and you can bring up to 5 of your friends, and we play online. I do Foundry, we do Forge, we do the whole kit and caboodle. We're playing new rules, and I have named it D&D Beyond.
For people who don't know, this is
Nice.
a reference to D&D Beyond, the online tools and
Yeah, for
rules,
rules and stuff. Mhm.
yes, rule
Compendium.
compendiums, shall we
Right.
say?
Mhm.
All the
Oh,
So
rule
it's
books of
called
D&D.
D&D Beyond.
Oh
And
my
you can
God.
sign up to play with me monthly. And I've already done the first 2 weeks. So it's you play every other week. They play every other week, and I've got 2 groups on Monday, and I've got one group on a Saturday that's a custom table, and they're already having a blast. So you could do something like that. Find somebody, and start out playing is probably an easier way to do that because you can do 1-on-1 until you find someone. That's mostly for people who already know how I DM style. If you're a fan of the dungeon run or you've seen me do the dungeon run, then I give you an opportunity to come play with me. And no pressure. I do record them so that everybody who is a member, whether you're a playing member or just the $5 tier, you can see how we play and the things that go on. So you can learn in that way if you want to learn. There are other people who do something similar. A lot of them are in Start Playing. For me, Patreon just made the most sense because it had all the social stuff that it has attached to it. But yeah, that's a great way to start, in my opinion. You also could just go to your local game store on a D&D day. There's plenty of adventure leagues around. You can pay for those. Those are, I've never done them myself, but I know people who swear by them and they're a lot of fun. And that's sort of like tracked play too through Wizards, which is cool. I still haven't gotten into that, and I need to at some point just so I can see what it's like. But they've started introducing factions and stuff, so that's pretty cool. Like there's some cool stuff that you do there. If you want to do it the through the Wizards the Coast door, that's a way to go about it. But really, your best bet, especially if you don't have the time to go to a game store or there isn't one where you're around where you live, then Start Playing I think is probably your best place to go. There are others, but Start Playing is the one I know the most.
Nice. Great answer. And lastly, from me anyway, very curious question. What's your favorite official release adventure that we've done at Wizards of the Coast?
Oh, it's got to be
I
Out
know
of the
what mine
Abyss.
is. Out of the
Out of the
Abyss.
Abyss. Yeah, I
Interesting.
loved Out of the Abyss. I love the Underdark as a concept. The frontier that, the unexplored frontier that's dangerous.
Yes.
So it's like the Wild West, but underground. Remove all the problematic cultural stuff from all that, obviously. But the where demons meet underground creatures, I think is super interesting to me. And Out of the Abyss was just such a like throw it in your face kind of thing. It was really unique for me.
Interesting.
Out of the starting materials, Phandelver and Below is great.
Yep.
I love Phandelver.
Specifically Phandelver and Below, the newest,
Yeah.
the newer
Yeah,
release. Oh, very cool.
One
Yeah.
of the groups that I'm running is Phandelver and Below, and they are.
Oh, nice. Awesome. Well, that's an amazing answer. I was not expecting Out of the Abyss. I thought you were going to say
Yeah.
what my favorite
Yeah.
adventure is, Curse of Straw.
I mean, I love Curse of Straw. Don't get me wrong; that's very good. But as a DM who's run Out of the Abyss, you're going to make interesting choices in Curse of Strahd. But I've read there's plenty of that type of cultural stuff out there that I love. But Out of the Abyss is unique. It's unique to me, and it's so open. Like you can go so many different places, and it's pretty dark for being it's in the Underdark. So there's some dark stuff in there too, which I love grim dark stuff. So that's me.
Fair enough. Fair enough. No, great answer. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
As I said, that's it for me. I've done a lot of talking. Troy, please
No,
jump in
I
if you want.
think one of the biggest things we've said about takeaways and fun and hope and that, and the way I'm tying this back to what I know of the cosplay side and everything like that, I see too many people saying online and sometimes complaining online that they're not getting enough likes and not getting all this and everything, and sometimes they're doing a cosplay just because it might get the likes and stuff. You need to be having fun with this. That's the main thing. Like, there is some characters that I've done in the mainstream. You can't see it off to here. There is the new Superman suit. I do that. Daredevil.
Nice.
I've been doing
Yeah.
Daredevil for 8 years. Like,
That's awesome.
I've literally, and then literally here, sat next to me, is all the armor printed for Snake Eyes from G.I. Joe.
Oh, you
G.I.
print?
Joe has not been a thing. Yeah, like
I do
no
too.
one
I
really
love printing.
cares
Love
massive
3D
amount
printing.
about G.I. Joe at the minute. It's all about fun. Do what you want to do for fun. Pick a character that's fun to you, and that's
There was
the biggest thing, I think.
Sorry, you just brought up G.I. Joe, and there was I think it was a comic on G.I. Joe that I read. Not a big G.I. Joe comic fan, but I just never got into it. It was more Marvel and DC for me. And then, of course, the weird Japanese porn anime was always something I was into as a teenager. I remember New York, you could get it anywhere you wanted to in New York City, and so I just bought a bunch when I went and visited. weird stuff, and just weird stuff, and getting it because it's weird, just because it's weird. Like, not even like this is a good story. This is just really weird. And I think that's cool. Yeah, no judgment. Like, yeah, like this is just really weird and cool. Like, what are you talking about? How did this get made? That's fascinating. So there's a G.I. Joe story about Cobra Commander that I thought was really interesting, which is Cobra Commander was just the fallout of essentially something like the 2008 housing crash. And he lost his family because of the decisions that the government made. And so it radicalized him and turned him into Cobra Commander. And I was like, these are the kind of stories that are interesting because that could freaking happen. I guarantee you that it's the blowback concept that the FBI talks about, which is like, yeah, maybe we shouldn't do these things because they actually end up hurting us more in the long run than solving the problem. And I think that's one of them, where it's like, one of the biggest reasons that you shouldn't let people die from homelessness or even be homeless is, one, it's a solvable problem that we just refuse to solve. Other countries have, and it's not hard. But the other issue is that, like, when people are like that and live in squalor like that, you are going to change them into things that they don't have any control over and are dangerous to society. So we should not do that, right? Like, we shouldn't kill people's parents because they live in a certain place in the world, because those children, if they survive, end up growing to hate you because you killed their parents. So, like, let's not do that. Let's just stop doing that and get back to, like, hey, let's help people rather than kill them.
Yeah, fucking preach. Jesus Christ. Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know how that's a hard thing to have a conversation about, or why that's even something that we have pushback on.
I love that it's controversial, because it shouldn't fucking... Anyway.
That's the biggest thing for me, is what is controversial. I look at and I go, why is that controversial? Why is not being monetarily decimated because you have to go to the hospital, why is that controversial? At what point in the history of the creation and advancement of medicine has it ever been, I choose profits before harm? Or healing harm? When is that? The Hippocratic Oath, which has been around for millennia, is the opposite of that. Thousands of people, even before Christ, were talking about, hey, maybe the first thing we shouldn't do is hurt people. Maybe that's the first thing we shouldn't do. Before we talk about what we should do, we can talk about what we should not do. And the number one of those is, it's already in the Bible, let's not kill people. Let's just not do that. There's no justification for it. When you murder, it's murder. Even if you have to defend yourself, it's murder. Yes, you were forced to do a thing, and that's horrible, but you still killed a person, and we should be honest about that. Do I think you should go to jail for that? No, not if you were trying to defend your own life. Of course not. But you still murdered someone, and that should still be impactful to you, that person got murdered. Whether they deserved it or not, they got murdered, and that should be impactful to you. The superhero stories tell us that. Right? The most impactful superhero stories for me are when they have to hurt somebody to the point of even not beyond murder, but just hurt them. It is the most devastating thing that happens to them, and it should be, because it is devastating.
Yes.
Yeah.
Man.
Storytelling is done for a reason, and not in not in a bubble. It's there. We tell these stories for a reason, and how people can hear the stories of how you can watch. For me, and this might be controversial to the audience, but how you can watch Starship Troopers and tell me that you want to live in that society, you missed the entire fucking point of that movie.
Media literacy gone.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part.
Yeah, like that's
like the fucking...
That's propaganda at its highest, and that is what was happening in Germany, in Nazi Germany. That's what was going. And you're telling me you want to live in that? You're telling me that you want to go to war to kill someone who's not like you? You are dangerous.
That's what a lot of the videos from the Helldivers games been, isn't it?
Exactly. Both are satire, and people don't,
And they don't realize that it's satire, and that this is what you're doing is absolutely horrendous. But it's a video game, so we don't care. But that doesn't mean that you go and do it in real life. You have the box. You have the sandbox. You don't need to go out in real life. I'm a firm believer in that you should give people who want to murder people a sandbox to do that on their own. They're not hurting anyone else. They're not murdering anyone. Do what you want in your own sandbox. I don't care. As long as it does not become that you do it in real life. The moment it does, then we have problems. I have played plenty of games throughout my entire life since I was a kid to now where I have shot real military hardware. I grew up in the Army. I knew how to shoot a gun by the time I was 7. I knew how to change and clean guns by the time I was 10. Like, these were things I were taught. At no point in my history ever have I thought about taking a gun and killing a lot of people. At no point. Even when I do it actively on a video game, day after day after day after day, I still have no want or desire to do that.
Fair enough.
So, we have sandboxes. It's the point that when you take that sandbox and you try to apply it to real life that it becomes a problem. If we all agree that this is a safe spot and we can do what we want in the safe space, then do what you want in the safe space, especially if you all agreed nobody gets harmed. I'm not trying to choose your morals or ethics. You have the right to do that yourself. And I'm okay with you cordoning them off so that you can do whatever you believe is ethical or moral or what you want to do with safety without harm. I think that's good. I think we shouldn't ban those things. I think we should give them the spots where they should exist and be able to be used for therapy, because I guarantee you after a certain amount of time, they'll get bored of it and not want to do it anymore. I've experienced that. I love first-person shooters, but I don't want to go play Call of Duty anymore. I've played that for 30 years of my life, and it's the same game all the time. They add new stuff. Sure, they add new stuff, and it's cool stuff, and I like that new stuff, and it's cool, but it's still the same game all the time. And eventually you get tired of it.
Yeah.
You get tired of it. You want to play something different.
Yeah.
Totally agree. Yeah.
So put your money into something different so we can experience that. And guess what? There'll be a brand new thing. I've been getting into Fortnite. I love Fortnite.
Okay. Yeah.
And the reason I love Fortnite is because they're throwing in my favorite stuff in there. Turtles, Godzilla. They're throwing all these things in there that I can achieve and be. And that's fun, man. Now it's not about killing people. Now it's about like, oh, that's Godzilla. I'm going to blow him up with a bazooka. That's fun.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's a different mindset. I'm not trying to cosplay the military. Not a thing you should cosplay. You shouldn't cosplay a police. You could cosplay your favorite police officer that hunts ghosts, sure. But, I'm saying, like, I'm not trying to cosplay a fireman. I'm not trying to cosplay these real things that have consequences.
Yes.
I'm trying to cosplay the things that I think are fun and tell stories that I think are good to hear. Right? I want to play Daredevil because you're blind or the better word is not handicapped. Somebody else older used that recently when I was doing work because they called themselves that. Just because you might have an impairment or you're not as able-bodied as others doesn't mean you don't have worth and you can't do things that are cool. No matter what an administration might tell you, it doesn't matter. You have a brain. It works. I'm a person who's attracted to other people because of their brain. That is literally the thing that attracts me to people is how your brain works, how you think. You could be man, woman, something in between. You could be non-gendered. You could be you could be whatever you are. But if your brain works in a way that I find attractive, I will find you attractive. That's how I work. And in these worlds, we can be what we want, and we can be who we are, and we can be accepted and loved for who we are. And if we can practice that, then we can also make it real.
Yeah.
Because if you practice it enough, it's a muscle memory and becomes something that you can practice all the time.
Yeah. We have value, regardless of what an administration might say.
Right.
Absolutely.
Or what anyone would say. You have value. You are valid. Your existence is valid. Period. End of story. No caveats to that.
Yeah. Find hope. Have fun.
And have fun.
Good way to fucking live life.
Yeah, man. And I think if more of us live this way, and look, that's one, you want to get into something really long-winded, and I know we don't have the time, but I'll come back and we can talk about it. AI. You want to talk about something that's going to cause some controversy? I am both a strong supporter of it and a strong denier of it. Because there are things in it that I love, and there are things in it that I do not. And I can love the things that I love and want those to contribute, and I can reject the things that I do not and tell us that we should not do that. And that does not mean that just because I support AI in that manner does not make me some sort of person that you can just dismiss. Because if you're just dismissing it flat out like that, that tells me you've done no research and you don't know what the benefit of it is. And if you don't know what the benefit of it is, how are you going to argue the detriments? If you don't know how it could be good for you, how are you going to actively and reasonably argue that it's bad for you in certain ways?
Oh, yes.
It is splitting the atom. It is splitting the atom.
Yeah.
If we didn't do that, a lot more of us would die from cancer nowadays. But we also wouldn't have the threat of nuclear war.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. We had a friend
So
literally, it's for, as I say, for another day, but we had a friend literally say the exact same thing about AI
yeah,
the other day.
yeah.
Yeah.
And if you
Crazy.
deny it and you're like, I'm not going to have anything to do with it, how are you going to evoke any change in it? How are you going?
Mm,
That box, Pandora is already out of the. You want to talk about hope? Pandora is already out of the box. So if you want to actually grab it and put it back in, then you've got to be active, vocal, and here's the kicker: because we live in capitalism, you have to be paying for it. If you are not paying for it, then you're not voting. You're not voting to change it. Your dollars are freedom, and they are in our country, in the United States. Your dollars are freedom, and it's the way you vote. So if you have some, then you should be putting it when things that you believe are good and should be changed. And for me, I support some AI stuff, but I'm also in the Discord saying this is horrible. This shouldn't be able to be happen. I'm having community conversations about, yes, I have ADHD. I have things that I can't do, like organize really well. Guess what AI helps me do? Organize things really quickly and effectively. As long as I know how to talk to it and I know how to, and it's going to fit to me and help me do those things, because it's just like any programming and coding. It doesn't think yet. It's getting there, but it doesn't do that yet. It's just really fancy and good at doing the rote things that a computer can do
yeah.
fastly.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my God, we're absolutely having you back to talk about many a subject. We're again very pleased that you're even able to entertain us on
Well,
this
you guys are
one
easy
occasion.
to
We're just
talk
blown
to, so
away. So,
thanks.
oh, man,
Thanks for having me. You guys have been really great to talk to.
no,
Oh,
it's
thank you
been it's
so much, Ron. Honestly, it's been an
Yeah.
absolute pleasure having you. And again, it is surreal. I know we said at the start, the fact I've listened to hundreds of hours of you playing characters and stuff. Yeah, thank you
Yeah.
so much for
You're welcome.
giving me fun as
Yeah, of
well.
course. Absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, that's at the heart of all of it for me is, like I get to put the energy and things that I learned into characters I play so that I hopefully bring others fun and a way to be inspired and to tell their own stories. And maybe learn something. Maybe you'll actually learn about a thing that you didn't know before, Maybe maybe you didn't grow up in an environment in where it was domestic violence situation. Well, listen to people who did grow up in domestic violence situations. We don't talk about it enough out loud because it's sort of, this dirty, dark secret that nobody wants to talk about. But I'm all about normalizing that, and like it happens. It happens all the time and will continue to happen. The only way we get rid of it is by bringing light to the darkness. And the only way to bring light to the darkness is to have the confidence and courage to talk about it. And the only way I was able to do that is because I had a lot of therapy. And I played a lot of D&D. And story told, hey, the dangers of this. And like the first thing that I learned when I was having a child was, I don't know how to be a dad. I've never been a dad. I don't know how to do that. I didn't have good dads. I don't know really what a dad is because I didn't have one that I ever really thought was worth, modeling myself after. But they taught me what not to do. And as I said before, sometimes the best way to find out what to do is to know what not to do. And so I know that has been very helpful in the 6 months that I've had this kid. Rowan, he's a bundle of joy, and I love him dearly. He's always happy, and it's easy. And it's difficult. Don't get me wrong, it's hard, but it's easy to be a dad because I know what not to do. When he cries, he's a baby. He's gonna cry. It's gonna happen. We have to deal with it. I'm the one who can regulate emotion. He can't. So I'll regulate mine, and then we'll help him. Why that was hard for my father figures to do, I don't know. But it is a thing, and now I'm going to take that mistake and learn from it.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
no, I
I
can
mean,
honestly,
yeah,
wholeheartedly say that you have given me fun, inspiration, and I have learned something.
Great.
Honestly. Yeah.
Well, I hope that
100% all of
continues.
that.
So check out the Dungeon Run. You can check us out at Twitch or YouTube / The Dungeon Run, all one word. We also have a Patreon, patreon.com / The Dungeon Run. If you want to play D&D with me, you can find me on patreon.com / DNDBRond, or you also can look me up anywhere at The Real Rogden, capital R, and then my last name, Ogden. You can find me on all those things. And also, if you have Disney Plus or, any of the National Geographic stuff, I work a little bit with National Geographic and their talent teams, so I help support their talent teams. And at the Oscars here at the end of February, the show that I've been working on called Sugarcane, which is about the indigenous schools of Canada and the dark things that the Catholic Church were involved in there. I highly recommend you watch it. Sugarcane is a documentary nominated for an Oscar. Pretty incredible documentary.
Amazing.
It's been humbling to work on it. And just a couple shout outs. Shout out to Morgan, Peter Brown, my brother from another mother, and my co-producer of the Dungeon Run. Without his extensive hard work, we wouldn't be anywhere where we're at. Same with the original cast of the Dungeon Run. They're still involved. They just have a little bit more time with family stuff. And our Patreon supporters, our fans, Troy, you, thank you so much for inviting me and being a fan of the Dungeon Run. Dex, it's been a pleasure talking with you. And the only question I have for you, Dex, and you can leave this in the podcast or not, because I don't know how it works, but how do I get on those fancy Wizards of the Coast new release lists? Because I have so many friends that are on it, and I'm not, and I'm trying to get on it.
This is a fantastic question. I can ask it to our, genuinely can, to be fair, I can ask it to our marketing and social media team.
Yeah,
I think a lot of that is done through an agency who then find people like yourselves who are involved in that sort of thing. I will absolutely mention it. My boss knows I do a podcast. She's actually a really big supporter of all the the cool stuff I do outside of work.
That's
I'll
number one thing is loving your boss, right? Number one thing about a long-standing work relationship is your boss. It's the number one thing that people leave their boss.
If you're listening, shout out to Lou Handa. Thanks for being an awesome boss. So.
Yeah, thank you, Lou, for
awesome.
being one of those people who's an awesome boss, because I have one. And it's the reason we keep our jobs, because we love our jobs, because our boss is awesome. So
absolutely, yes.
Yep. Yeah.
Anyway,
literally the number one stat. Number one stat, if you do research on why people leave their jobs, number one reason is they don't like their boss.
Absolutely. No, absolutely true.
Sense.
But this has been so much fun. We're absolutely having you back again if you're able, if you're willing to
Anytime.
join us once more.
You let me know.
Thanks, man. This has been so great.
I'm glad.
And on behalf of both of us, thank you all for listening. I've been Dex. I've been joined by Troy, and once again, this has been Ron Ogden from the Dungeon Run. You can
Thanks
find
for listening,
us.
y'all.
Yeah, thanks for listening. It's been great. We are podcast. Nope. One more time on this. I always fuck up the sign off. I always do. We are.
And we always leave it in.
We always leave it. Okay, fine. I'm leaving it again. We are podcast pop cultured on Instagram, pop.culture.pod on TikTok, and we will catch you next time. Thanks very much. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.